If you go through most papers from yesterday and even from this morning, you will find one story that has been sizzling, and that is the investigation, CBN's investigation of the acquisition, Titan Trust Bank's acquisition of Union Bank. And that story really is generating lots of reactions. And yes, according to the Central Bank of Nigeria, there were some irregularities, so investigation is ongoing to ensure that there is transparency and things were properly done. Though Titan Trust Bank has refuted, and they claim that due process was followed in the acquisition of Union Bank, but CBN's position is that cronies, allegedly cronies, were used to acquire the bank, that's Union Bank. So let me start with the wise one here, Osamhanze, who is Director, Research and Policy, Africa Development Studies Center, and also in-house analyst here at Souq News. What's your thought on this big controversy that did not let people wine and dine alone to Christmas food, but they had to check what's happening?
I don't think it's a controversy. It's just the fact that the president had set up a special investigation panel to look at the activities of the CBN in the last 8 years and to see what things were done and the things that went wrong. So the investigators are the one giving us the reports. Somehow, they say it's leaked reports because we are waiting to see the detail of the report as authentically presented by the chief investigator. The whole idea here is the fact that there's a lot of shady deals that are going on in our climb, and that's to the shame of a lot of us who participated in all these shady deals that are going on behind scene in the Nigeria state. I say this with all sense of humility because this is not the real first time we had these issues. The acquisition of bank in Nigeria has always been along this line, but it's just that somehow people don't pay any close attention to some of all these details. And the people who sit at the Apex Bank there can sit down, manipulate a whole lot of things, and then, you know, people raise issues. For example, when Intercontinental Bank was acquired, and say the acquiring bank was less in terms of asset than the bank they acquired. But it went through. And somebody had his way because he knows somebody who is sitting somewhere with some very big power, oppressing another person, and then, of course, those assets are done. And that's what CBN is saying. And I've also seen that, of course, people have put out paid advert there. Yesterday or so, the police has invited one of such persons to come and clarify himself. Because what he put on the newspaper and the oral evidence that he gave to the panel seems contradictory. So we really need to know how this transaction happened. That people are moving money around just to acquire assets, and this is not healthy for us as a people. And this is why people have always said that the problem with this country has been the elite, who sits comfortably around state structures and use it to feather their nests. And this is one of the things that the president has said in one of his interviews, that the Nigerian state cannot continue to suffer at the hand of this very greedy elite who takes everything and put it in their pocket. This is what we see today, that all this happening, one person just wake up one morning, suddenly become a multi-millionaire, and then you are using all manner of people. Because the issue here is to say that, of course, you are using people to front for you, and you are thinking that those fronts will not be seen. And the investigator says that these two guys that you say that are the majority shareholder in this company, we actually have sent a letter to them since June or July, inviting them to come testify before the panel. Why are they be on the run? We wrote, and the secretary of the bank said that they were on holiday, that as soon as they come, They will come in. If they are genuine investors, let us see them. And this is what has been happening, really, where you see people fronting on behalf of the greedy elite in this country who have access to the coffer of government. And when yesterday I was reflecting on these issues, and I said to myself, no wonder Babangida said, look, he didn't know what kind of resilience that Nigerian economy had. That in all the pillages, the economy is still standing. And I think we can do better.
Yeah. You know, I was the moment I saw the story, or I read the story, honestly, I was bothered, I was troubled. You know, what went through my imagination is, because part of the allegations there is the fact that the former CBN governor had to flow like 593 accounts in US, in UK, and China using proxies, and, you know. And I was wondering, how could an individual, you know, decide, or allegedly decided to hold like 593 accounts, you know, offshore accounts, and for what? All the billions of naira. You know, they're in the realms of allegations, but these allegations are somehow weighty and cannot be waved aside, because you must understand that he who comes with equity must come with clean hand. For someone occupying the office of the CBN governor, the perception is that person has to be someone of integrity, someone of unquestionable character. And so when these kind of allegations are in the public space, it bothers people like me, and also just like Nigerians. And the impact of that is the trust deficit that people, you know, that we exhibit when it comes to banking. You're looking at TTB and the Union Bank that's been affected. You look at the plight of the customers. Definitely that will give birth to, you know, panic withdrawing, because banking is all about trust. And when these kind of allegations are flying in the public space, what naturally customers will do, oh, let me ensure that my money is safe. And that's why CBN is trying to intervene. Yeah, it's good. CBN is performing its role. And if you look at the personalities involved, there are people who should know better. You know, of course, these are allegations, but these kind of allegations are so sensitive that you understand that with what this investigator has done, they've gone far. And so much is expected from this set of people. If you look at Tunde Lemo has been director of operation for CBN for years. So when it comes to the nitty-gritty of CBN, everything about CBN, everything about he has seen all. And now as the chairman of TTB, you will have expected that, okay, he will have done, though he has defended himself.
Yeah, but this is the issue, is the fact that because he's an insider.
Yeah.
We see him now as a very big man. Now, what had happened here is to use the privilege of office to empower yourself, and to the detriment of the generality of the people. And I think this is the real issue which we face. You see, sometimes we can point hand to one man, in quotes, and you think that you have people who are working with you, because, you know, you just raised the issue of the Union Purchase Bank, because in that whole report, there's so much that is inside it that so that we don't miss them up. Yes. There are so many things inside that story that we don't want to miss up, but this is just the sales of the floating of Titan Bank. You are looking at the purchase of Keystone Bank. You're looking at the purchase of Union Bank. And you're seeing the hand of the same people around it. And this is what is happening. And this is because people use the privilege of their office to enrich themselves.
But the thing is, at the time that this is happening, even though that in some quarters, particularly on the side of those who have been fingered, they have described this or called this a political motivated investigation. But be that as it may, do you see it as something good happening at this time? Because the current CBN governor has talked about recapitalization, particularly for the year 2024. So as we would see more of acquisition, perhaps, and even merger, do you think think it is timely that this investigation is happening to set its straight
but you see,
and right
it's
further transactions that would happen?
It's not just about the bank. It's about the general operation of CBN, where abuses happen. That's all that they are. You see, CBN in the last 8 years had done so much havoc to the Nigerian economy that, you see, they're only drawing our attention to some of the things that happen underground in CBN.
The extent of the wrong.
Yeah, so you look at the issue of Naira redesign.
Yes.
Take, for example, you print 760 billion Naira with 61 billion Naira, for example. Now, they are saying that even the so-called redesign they did was not what was presented to Mr. President.
And Mr. President,
so what was presented to Mr. President, that the one he approved, and what was executed are two different things. That contract was already awarded before the board were informed. So these are breaches of procedures. So you can't talk this about political witch hunt. It's just the fact that some people had done. This is a problem I have with Nigeria. When the redesign started, everybody was shouting. Now that they are looking into the matter now, people are calling it the political witch hunt. Because we just like to side one way, and we are not objective about the way we talk about issues. And this is what we are seeing in the press. That the people who were shouting the other time that, look, this redesign has created a whole lot of hardship. Now they are investigating the issue. You are seeing it as political witch hunt. This is a problem that we must run away from. But let's look at the fact itself. Take, for example, Femi just mentioned the issue of the multiple account open. I read the statement of the CBN, the former CBN governor. And he said by act, each directorate of the CBN can open foreign accounts. So I don't think he denied that those accounts exist. Now the question is, on whose approval were those accounts opened and multiplied in this? What were the real whole idea? I was speaking yesterday with somebody, a friend of mine who had been on the foreign desk of one of these banks, and he said to me, he said, you see, why people were talking about the removal of subsidy, there was one good thing that the president did when he came on that very first day, that he suspended the Arrow 200 window. And he said that was the greatest fraud that was in the CBN. You see, these are issues that people see, that people just have the opportunity of office. Rather than build the nation, we are using this office to line up our pocket and even take money that we cannot even spend. That is what is most absurd about this whole issue. So I don't think it's about witch hunt. And I also don't think it's about the stability of the banking institutions. And CBN says, look, the banks are fine. If there are errors in the process, those errors can be corrected, but it has no way to affect depositors' fund in those banks. Don't forget that AMCON is there, NDIC is there, that has backing these commercial banks. And so there's nothing that's going to happen to the depositor fund. That one is secured. But I think it's a governance issue that is being addressed. That there's poor governance. There was poor governance in the CBN. And no wonder that when the current CBN governor was speaking at the CIBN event, one of the issues he raised, that the CBN, which he inherited, had deviated from its constitutional role to veer into fiscal areas, which was reserved for the Minister of Finance.
Even to commercial banking as well.
So, and he said what he's going to do is that he's going to focus on regulatory role, which is mandatory for CBN to do. And I think this is where we have to see that people are taking advantage of so many things. Look at the abuse of the ways and means. Advance that you're supposed to just give to government, and then before the financial year end, government pay you back, because it's an expectation of the fact that you are expecting this thing. And we also saw where the ways and means, what is approved by the president and what is drawn without the president notice, discrepancies here and there. And I think it's a shame on those people who perpetrated this evil against this nation.
Yeah, I think, like Femi mentioned, that is an issue of trust deficit, because the CBN has been like the most trusted financial institution in the country, being the apex bank and the financial regulator. So to have such issues coming from the CBN really is a disappointment to a lot of Nigerians. But the investigation is ongoing. If we were to look at all of the issues raised by the special investigator in the report, which is allegedly leaked, we would not leave here this morning. That would be the entire show, but we will take it one after the other as the day goes by and as more information comes in regarding the investigation. But there was one recommendation made by the special investigator regarding the redesigned notes, which he referred to as illegal currency, because it did not go through due process before the redesign was done. So, and he recommended that it be withdrawn from circulation. Now, I do not know if that recommendation would be taken up, but should that happen, wouldn't it be a loss for the country on both sides?
Well, I think CBN can find a way to actually recover those monies. But I think the issues he was raising was the fact that the process through which that redesign eventually happened was the fact that, of course, they came to the president and said to him, we want to redesign the Naira. And of course, the president is saying anything wrong about it. But the only thing that he insisted that the Nigerian printing and minting company should be the one to do the design. Now, the CBN governor called the MD of Mint, and he said, look, given the time space and the work that is involved, we cannot redesign this Naira because of the security features that is in it. And so he asked that a new design be done. And then CBN called a foreign company that was supposed to do this redesign. And eventually, the redesign was not done. And what you now saw was just the change of color of the 1,500 and 200. Now, what was presented to the president for redesign, complete redesign, was the 100 Naira, 200, 500, and 1,000. Now, when all these conversations were going on, now who briefed Mr. President? This thing didn't get an approval. So what is indirectly saying is that what Mr. President approved to be done and what eventually was done, they are two different things. And if they are two different things, to that extent, what was done is illegal because it does not have the approval of the board and it does not have the approval of Mr. President. So that is what the investigator is saying. But that is left for Mr. President to take that decision, whether to withdraw those notes. But I know that from the one he says that two of them can continue to run together until we are able to get to that point. But I think it was important that the Naira redesign be done. And I think what we can actually do is to now sit down properly, let the new CBN governor sit down properly and do a proper redesign of the Naira for security features so that we will be able to do it and execute it seamlessly. Yeah, but if you ask me really, and if this is going to be done, I will continue to insist we must phase out higher denominations in Nigeria.
But if that should be done, Femi, do you think it should be something that happens in about a year or two, considering the cost of even printing the money? Do we need to go that route right now?
You know, the mistake the former CBN made was to have told that this thing could be done within 3 months, few months. If you look at other clients, UK and, you know, the two notes were on concurrently for like a year or more because the logistics involved, even to redesign this, you know, the problem is not the idea, the concept of redesigning the Naira, but it's just the implementation. it created a lot of bottleneck. In fact, it was really disturbing that even like critical stakeholder like the Ministry of Finance was not even being carried along. And I felt the former CBN governor should have been long investigated before now. You know, at the point where he was delving into politics, I'd expected the former president to have, you know, controlled him, because in leadership there's elements of control. Someone you've selected to be part of your cabinet, and as the CBN governor, you ought to maintain that political neutrality. But what did he do? He went into politics. You know, that was why what affected the internal mechanism of the CBN. So I'd expected the former president to have investigated this man. Why he didn't, I don't understand. I won't hold brief for him.
No. You must understand the psychology of Mr. President. He was a victim of electoral fraud for 3 consecutive electoral cycles. And if there was anything that he wanted to leave as legacy, was a free, fair, and transparent elections. And anything that will assist that process, he was going to give a nod to it. So when he was told that the bigger problem at that time was no longer snatching of ballot box, was the purchase of votes.
Vote buying.
He felt that, and when he was told that, look, if we redesign this currency in this space of time, politicians wouldn't have money to buy votes.
That usually happens.
Now, and if they don't have money to buy votes,
then
of course the outcome of that election will reflect the true will of the people. And for Mr. President, that would have been a lasting legacy to be left for society. Now, I'm not sure anybody told him the dynamics of implementing this new redesign, what were the likely risks that were involved, because this analysis were not done. Now, if the CBN had done a thorough and strategic planning in terms of conceptualizing and executing this process, at least with a summary, we'll be able to say, okay, this is what we're expecting to be the outcome of these things. So, but what has excited Mr. President, and if you even remember when he was interviewed and they asked him about the Naira redesign, and he said he supported it, because anything that will stop politicians from buying votes or using money to buy votes, that his government was not going to support it. So the intention for Mr. President was clear, that this was to ensure that the election came out cleaner than the previous elections. But unfortunately, that was like whitewashing the president,
that was
because the intention,
the bait that was sent to him.
The intention of the CBN governor was the fact that he had interest, and of course, if the Naira were printed, he's the one who has access to it. He could be the only one who could buy the vote, really, because other politicians would never have money. So these were the real issue, that yes, he had very dirty intentions. Let's even assume that people were doing this on his behalf. For him to have hired a lawyer to go to court on his behalf to challenge his eligibility in court, I think that was taking bravery too far.
All right, we'll leave it here today, and we'll move on to something else. Now, let's get to Morocco right now, where the story says that the government of Morocco has announced a social reform to provide direct monthly assistance to nearly 1 million disadvantaged families starting Thursday, which is tomorrow. Now, the move, part of a comprehensive social reform initiated by King Mohammed VI in 2020, aims to offer targeted family allowances. Idahosa, this is a terrain that you're quite familiar with. Providing monthly financial assistance to disadvantaged persons is quite similar to what we've often found in Nigeria. But what's your thoughts on this financial assistance to people? Is it an intervention that should be encouraged, or there are other ways to intervene?
Well, I think what Morocco is doing is looking at the two factors here. Is the impact of the climate change on Morocco is massive. I remember talking to some Moroccan the last time, and people were saying, oh, the farm that we used to really hang on to. The weather is not even making it worth the while anymore. So there's the change in the environment. In short, when I was in Morocco last month, the kind of weather you saw, in short, they told me, people I interacted with said in their lifetime, they have never seen it. And so this is affecting farm and a whole lot of things. So it's going to definitely impact on poverty. And also you remember that, of course, there was this earthquake in September in Marrakesh also, which also have left a whole lot of family devastated and the rest of it. So what government can only do is to see how to alleviate the suffering of the people. And I think it's a global challenge. I remember some years ago when Elon Musk was in UAE and he was talking to the king of UAE, and he said to him about the impact of AI on global workforce, and he said nations should begin to think about what they call global wage for citizens who are not able to catch up with work and the rest of it. But I think, again, Morocco excites me really because they don't have so much resources as we are. But the king is very progressive and he thinks citizens first. And I think that is only what we need to learn, because there are so many shady deals around us when we do some of all these things. And like I said, before we as a people can begin to emulate what other people are doing, we must first of all identify our people. And I can't take my mouth away from that thing. Until the national identification process is done here, where we will not be able to get to the right target. Now, these people know who is who. They can monitor real time where people are. And they have deployed technology in driving their system. And I think we need to borrow a leaf from Morocco government.